Tunde didn't knock. He slammed the penthouse office door so hard the glass trembled in its frame. His breath came in sharp bursts, his chest tight, his pulse hammering in his ears. The gala music thumped faintly from downstairs, but up here, everything felt too quiet, too still, too wrong. Because Adrian Cole, his CEO, the coldest man in Lagos, was holding Amara's hand. Not just holding it, refusing to let go. "Leave her hand," Tunde said, voice cracking like something inside him had snapped. "Now!" Amara turned toward him, eyes wide, shimmering with something he couldn't read. Fear? Guilt? Confusion? And that made it worse. Adrian didn't even look at Tunde. His gaze stayed locked on Amara, like she was the only person in the room. "Just one more moment," Adrian whispered. That whisper was the part that broke Tunde. Adrian Cole didn't whisper. He commanded, he ordered, he dismissed. But now he sounded like a man begging for air. "Amara," Tunde said, stepping forward, "come here." She didn't move. "Tunde," she murmured, her voice trembling, "please, just wait." "For what?" he shot back. "For him to finish whatever this is?" Adrian finally lifted his eyes, and the look in them, raw, hollow, almost pleading, hit Tunde like a punch to the ribs. "Don't do this," he said softly. "Not yet." Tunde froze, because nothing made sense. Nothing. And then the moment shattered. The story rewound in his mind, dragging him back to the beginning, the moment everything started to go wrong. It began 3 weeks ago when Tunde received the email that changed everything. "Dinner with the CEO?" Amara asked, leaning over his shoulder as he stared at the screen. "Since when does Adrian Cole invite employees to dinner?" "He doesn't," Tunde said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. This is huge." Amara smiled, brushing her fingers through his hair. "You deserve it." He swallowed. "He said I can bring a guest." "Oh," she raised a brow. "And who are you bringing?" He laughed, pulling her into his lap. "Don't play with me." She kissed his forehead. "Then I'll come, but you know I don't like corporate people." "You'll like him," Tunde said, though he wasn't sure anyone liked Adrian. "Just be yourself, that's enough." He didn't know then how much those words would haunt him. The restaurant was the kind of place where the air smelled like money and the waiters moved like ghosts. Tunde kept adjusting his tie, palms sweating. Amara looked stunning in a simple black dress, her curls pinned up, her eyes bright, but cautious. "Relax," she whispered. "You're shaking." "I'm not shaking. You're vibrating." He exhaled shakily. "I just need tonight to go well." She squeezed his hand. "It will." Then Adrian Cole walked in. He didn't arrive. He entered like a storm front, tall, sharp-jawed, expression carved from ice. His presence sucked the warmth out of the room. Tunde stood quickly. "Good evening, sir." Adrian nodded once. "Tunde." Then his eyes shifted to Amara, and everything changed. She smiled politely. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Cole." Adrian extended his hand. She placed hers in his, and he didn't let go. Not for 1 second. Not for 2. Not for 5. The silence stretched so long Tunde felt his stomach twist. "Sir," he said, forcing a laugh, "you've got her hand." Adrian blinked, as if waking from a trance, but still didn't let her go. "Amara, gently tugged. "Mr. Cole?" Finally, he let go. But the damage was done. Adrian cleared his throat, looking away as if embarrassed. "My apologies. I reminded me of someone I lost." "Oh," Amara asked, softly. "Who?" He didn't answer. Tunde felt something cold settle in his chest. Dinner was worse. Adrian barely spoke to Tunde. Every question, every comment, every glance drifted toward Amara. "What inspires your art? How long have you been painting? Do you ever feel like your work speaks back to you?" Tunde tried to steer the conversation back to business, but Adrian brushed him off like background noise. At one point, he leaned forward, studying Amara with unsettling intensity. "You have a presence, a quiet gravity. It's rare." Amara shifted uncomfortably. "Thank you, I guess." Tunde forced a smile. "Sir, about the new project proposal." "Later," Adrian said, without looking at him. "Amara, do you have any exhibitions coming up?" Tunde's jaw clenched. He felt invisible, irrelevant, small. When dinner ended, Adrian stood up and said, "I'd like to see your work sometime." Amara hesitated. Sure." Tunde stepped in. "We'll check our schedule." Adrian's eyes flicked to him, cold again. "I wasn't asking you." The words hit like a slap. Amara grabbed Tunde's arm. "We should go." Adrian nodded once. "I'll be in touch." As they walked out, Tunde whispered, "What was that?" Amara shook her head. "I don't know, but something's wrong with him." Tunde didn't know how right she was. The next week, Adrian requested a meeting. "Tunde," he said over the phone, "bring Amara." Tunde froze. "Sir, why?" "I want her opinion on something. She's not an employee. I'm aware." Tunde swallowed. "I'll ask her." "You'll bring her," Adrian corrected. "Tonight." The line went dead. Tunde stared at his phone, anger boiling under his skin. "What did he say?" Amara asked. "He wants you there." She frowned. "Why?" "I don't know," he snapped. "Maybe he's obsessed with you." Amara stepped back. "Tunde, don't do that." "What do?" "Turn this into something ugly." "It already is ugly." She sighed. "Fine, let's just go. Maybe he needs help." "He's my CEO, not your patient." "Tunde." "Fine," he muttered. "Let's go." But he felt something dark curling inside him, something he didn't want to name. When they arrived at the gallery, Adrian was already there, standing alone in front of one of Amara's paintings. He didn't turn when they entered. "She painted this," he said quietly. "Yes," Amara replied. "It feels like grief, like someone trying to breathe underwater." Amara's breath caught. "That's exactly what I felt when I made it." Adrian finally lifted his eyes, and shining with something raw. "How did you know?" Tunde stepped between them. "Sir, what is this?" Adrian ignored him. "Amara," he said, voice trembling, "you remind me of someone I lost." Amara's eyes softened. "Who?" Adrian swallowed hard. "My fiancée." Tunde's fellow-tipped belief. Then Adrian reached for Amara's hand again. This time she didn't pull away. Tunde's heart cracked. "Amara," he whispered, "don't." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Tunde, I think he's breaking." And that was the moment Tunde realized. He wasn't just losing control. He was losing her. Tunde's throat tightened as he watched Amara's fingers resting inside Adrian's. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't flirtatious. It was worse, intimate in a way that didn't belong to him, like they shared a language he couldn't hear. Let go of her, Tunde said again, quieter this time because anger was starting to drown under something heavier. Please. Amara pulled her hand back slowly, and Adrian let it slip away like it physically hurt him to release it. Tunde, she whispered, don't make this harder. Harder? He laughed, but it came out broken. You're holding hands with my boss. Adrian stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have, Tunde snapped. Amara touched his arm. Let's go home. But Tunde pulled away, not until he explains. Adrian's jaw tightened. You want the truth? Yes, I want the truth. Adrian looked at Amara, not him. Then she should tell you first. Amara's breath hitched. Adrian, don't. Tunde's heart dropped. Tell me what? Amara closed her eyes. Not here. No, Tunde said. Here, now. Adrian exhaled shakily. Tunde, she knew. Knew what? That she reminded me of someone. Amara whispered, Tunde, please. You knew? Tunde's voice cracked. Since when? Since the first dinner, she said softly, when he held my hand. Tunde staggered back like she'd slapped him. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me? He laughed bitterly. You let him touch you. You let him... Stop, she said sharply. It wasn't like that. Adrian stepped forward. Tunde, don't blame her. Shut up, Tunde snapped. You don't get to talk. Adrian froze. Amara grabbed Tunde's hands. Listen to me. He's grieving. He's not trying to take me. Tunde pulled away. Then what is he doing? Adrian's voice cracked. Trying not to fall apart. The room fell silent. Tunde stared at him. What? Adrian swallowed hard. She reminds me of my fiancée. Not her face, not her body, her presence, her voice, the way she looks at people like she sees through them. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Tunde's anger faltered, replaced by confusion. Your fiancée? Adrian nodded. She died 3 years ago. I never recovered. Amara whispered, I'm sorry. Adrian shook his head. Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. Tunde felt the ground shift beneath him. So what? You're using her as a replacement? No, Adrian said quickly. I know she's not her. I know that. But when she speaks, when she paints, when she looks at me, it feels like I'm not drowning. Amara covered her mouth, tears spilling. Tunde felt something sharp twist inside him. So you're saying you're in love with her? No, Adrian said firmly. I'm saying she reminds me of the only person I ever loved. And that makes it okay to hold her hand? Tunde shot back. No, Adrian whispered. Nothing makes it okay. I'm sorry. Amara stepped between them. Tunde, he's not lying. I don't care, Tunde said. He crossed a line. Adrian nodded. I know. Tunde turned to Amara. And you let him? She flinched. Tunde, you let him, he repeated, voice breaking. Why? Amara wiped her tears. Because I recognized the grief. Because I felt it too. Tunde froze. Your brother, she nodded. When he died, I felt like I was underwater for months. When Adrian looked at me, I saw the same thing. I couldn't walk away. So you comforted him? Tunde whispered. Yes. And you didn't think to tell me? I was afraid you'd react like this. Tunde's chest tightened. Like what? Like a man watching his girlfriend hold another man's hand? Amara's voice cracked. Like a man who thinks everything is about him. The words hit him like a slap. Adrian stepped forward. "Tunde, she's right." "Shut up," Tunde snapped again. "No," Adrian said quietly. "You need to hear it. You brought her into this world to impress me. You used her first." Tunde's breath caught. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Adrian asked. "You wanted her beside you because she makes you look stable, successful, human." Tunde felt his stomach drop. Amara whispered, "Tunde, is that true?" "No," he said quickly. "I mean, no, not like that." "Then how?" she asked. "I just wanted you with me. I wanted you to see me succeed." Amara's eyes softened with sadness, not love. "You wanted me to validate you." Tunde's throat tightened. "That's not fair." "It's honest," she said. Adrian looked away. "I'm sorry for everything. I'll step back. I'll stay away from both of you." Amara shook her head. "It's not about staying away. It's about boundaries." "So what now?" Tunde whispered. Amara took a shaky breath. "Now we go home." Tunde nodded slowly. "Okay." But when he reached for her hand, she hesitated. Just for a second, but it was enough. Tunde's heart cracked open. "Amara," he whispered. She forced a smile. "Let's just go." They walked toward the door. Adrian stood frozen, watching them leave like he was watching something precious slip through his fingers. "Tunde," Adrian said quietly. Tunde stopped, but didn't turn. "I'm sorry," Adrian whispered, "for everything." Tunde did not respond. He walked out with Amara, but the silence between them felt heavier than anything Adrian had said. As they stepped into the elevator, Amara leaned against the wall, wiping her eyes. "Tunde," she whispered, "we need to talk." He swallowed hard. "About what?" She looked at him with a sadness that made his chest ache. "About us." The elevator doors closed, and Tunde felt the world closing with them. The elevator doors slid open into the parking garage, and the cold air hit them like a slap. Amara walked ahead, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete. Tunde followed, his steps slower, heavier, like he was dragging the weight of the entire night behind him. "Amara," he said softly, "talk to me." She didn't stop. "Not here." "Then where?" She reached the car, leaned against the door, and finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, her breathing uneven. "Tunde, I'm tired." "Of what?" "Of me." "Of all of this," she whispered, "of feeling like I'm walking on glass around you." He blinked. "Around me?" "Yes," she said. "You get jealous so fast. You get angry so fast. You assume the worst so fast." "I'm not jealous," he said, voice rising. "Don't lie," she cut in. "Not tonight." He swallowed hard. "Fine, I'm jealous. But can you blame me? He held your hand twice. And I told you why. I told you what I saw in him. You saw grief. I saw a man who doesn't respect boundaries." Amara sighed. "You're not wrong, but you're not right either." Tunde stepped closer. "Then help me understand." She looked away. "I don't know if you want to understand. I think you just want to win." "Win what?" "Me," she whispered. "You want to win me, keep me, hold me like a trophy you earned." Tunde's chest tightened. "That's not fair." "It's honest," she said again. She rubbed his face. "So what are you saying? That I'm the problem?" "I'm saying we both are. But tonight, you scared me." He froze. "Scared you?" "Yes," she said. "The way you barged in, the way you shouted, the way you looked at him like you wanted to hit him." "I wasn't going to hit him." "You looked like you could. And that's not you, Tunde. That's not the man I love." The words hit him harder than any punch. He stepped back. "Do you still love me?" Amara's lips trembled. "I do, but I don't know if we're okay." Tunde felt the world tilt. "Amara!" She opened the car door. "Let's go home." He hesitated. "Are you coming with me?" She paused. "Where else would I go?" He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. The drive home was silent, not the comfortable silence they used to share. This one felt like a wall between them, a thick, suffocating wall. When they reached the apartment, Amara walked straight to the bedroom. Tunde followed, but she stopped him at the door. "Not tonight," she said softly. He froze. "You're shutting me out?" "I'm giving us space. We need it." He swallowed. "Amara, please." "Good night, Tunde." The door closed. He stood there for a long time, staring at the wood grain, feeling like he was losing her inch by inch. The next morning she was already dressed when he woke. She sat at the dining table, sipping tea, staring at nothing. "Morning," he said quietly. She nodded. "Morning." He sat across from her. "Can we talk?" She shook her head. "Not yet." "Amara, I need time, just a little." He clenched his jaw. "Time for what?" "To breathe," she whispered. "To think." He exhaled shakily. "Okay." She stood. "I'm going to the studio." "I'll drive you." "No," she said quickly. "I'll take a cab." He felt the sting. "You don't want me there." "Not today." He nodded slowly. "Okay." She grabbed her bag and walked to the door. "Amara." She turned. "I'm sorry." Her eyes softened. "I know." Then she left, and Tunde felt the apartment collapse into silence. He didn't know what to do with himself. He paced, he sat, he stood, he paced again. His mind kept replaying the night before, Adrian's trembling voice, Amara's tears, the way she hesitated before taking his hand. He grabbed his phone. He typed a message to her, deleted it, typed another, deleted it. Finally, he threw the phone on the couch and groaned. "This is insane," he muttered. He needed answers, he needed clarity, he needed something. And the only person who had any answers was the last person he wanted to see. Adrian Cole. Tunde arrived at the company headquarters with a storm in his chest. He marched past the receptionist, past the security desk, straight to the executive elevator. He didn't knock this time either. He pushed open the office door. Adrian was sitting at his desk, staring at a framed photo. He looked up slowly. "Tunde?" "We need to talk," Tunde said. Adrian nodded. "I figured you'd come." Tunde stepped inside. "What did you say to her?" "Nothing you didn't hear," Adrian replied. "Don't play with me," Tunde snapped. "She's pulling away. She's shutting me out." Adrian looked down. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." "No," Adrian said quietly. Tunde clenched his fists. "Did you want her?" Adrian's eyes widened. "No." "Did you want to replace your fiancée with her?" "No," Adrian said again. "I wanted to breathe." Tunde's chest tightened. "And you needed my girlfriend for that?" Adrian swallowed. "I didn't choose her. I saw her and something inside me broke." Tunde shook his head. "You should have stayed away." "I tried," whispered Adrian, "but grief doesn't listen." Tunde stepped closer. "You ruined everything." Adrian's voice trembled. "I know." Tunde stared at him, chest heaving. "If she leaves me, I'll never forgive you." Adrian looked him dead in the eyes. "If she leaves you, it won't be because of me." Tunde froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Adrian said softly, You're losing her to your fear, not to me." The words sliced through him. Tunde's voice dropped. "Say that again." Adrian didn't flinch. "You're losing her because you don't trust her, because you don't trust yourself." Tunde's heart stopped. He whispered, "Does she see something in me that she doesn't see in you?" Adrian hesitated, and that hesitation was the cliffhanger that shattered Tunde's world.
Tunde stared at Adrian, waiting for the answer that would either break him or save him. Adrian's silence stretched, thick and suffocating. His eyes flickered, not with guilt, but with something worse: hesitation. Tunde stepped closer. "Does she see something in you that she doesn't see in me?" Adrian swallowed, his voice barely audible. "I don't know." The words hit Tunde like a blow to the chest. He staggered back, gripping the edge of the desk to steady himself. His breath came in sharp bursts, his vision blurring. "You don't know?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "You don't know?" Adrian looked down. "I'm not trying to take her from you." "But you could," Tunde said, his voice trembling. "You could, and you know it." "No," Adrian said firmly, "I couldn't, because she doesn't want me." Tunde's heart twisted. "Then why did she hesitate? Why did she pull away from me last night?" Adrian closed his eyes. "Because she's hurting, because she's overwhelmed, because she's trying to carry both of us." Tunde felt his knees weaken. "Both of us?" "Yes," Adrian said softly. "You and me." Tunde shook his head. "I didn't ask her to carry you." "No," Adrian replied, "but she did anyway." Tunde's voice cracked. "Why?" "Because she's kind," Adrian whispered. "Because she sees pain and she can't walk away from it." Tunde felt tears burning behind his eyes. "And what about me? What about my pain?" Adrian looked at him with a sadness that felt like a mirror. "You hide yours. She can't help what she can't see." Tunde's breath hitched. "I'm losing her." "Not yet," Adrian shook his head. "What do you mean, not yet?" Tunde snapped. "I mean," Adrian said gently, "you still have a chance, but not if you keep fighting the wrong person." Tunde clenched his fists. "And who am I fighting?" Adrian stepped closer. "Your fear." Tunde's voice cracked. "I don't know how to stop." Adrian placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then let her see you, the real you, not the man trying to impress me, not the man trying to win, just you." Tunde stared at him, chest heaving. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Adrian said quietly, "I don't want to be the reason you lose her." Tunde's throat tightened. "You already are." Adrian's voice broke. "I know." Tunde stepped back, wiping his face. "I need to go." Adrian nodded. "Talk to her. Not at her, not around her, to her." Tunde turned toward the door. "And Tunde," Adrian said softly. Tunde paused. "I'm sorry." Tunde didn't look back. "You should be." He walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt like the end of something. When Tunde reached the apartment, Amara wasn't there. His chest tightened. He called her. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. He paced the living room, running his hair through his hair. "Come on, Amara, pick up." He grabbed his keys and rushed out. He knew exactly where she'd be. Amara's studio was dimly lit, the smell of paint thick in the air. She stood in front of a canvas, brush in hand, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Amara," Tunde said, breathless. She didn't turn. "I needed space." "I know, but I need you." She closed her eyes. "Tunde." He stepped closer. Please, look at me." She turned slowly, her face soft but exhausted. "What do you want me to say?" "Anything," he whispered. "Just don't shut me out." She set the brush down. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying to protect myself." "From you?" he asked, voice cracking. "From your fear," she said. "From your anger. From the way you look at me like I'm slipping away." "Are you?" he whispered. She hesitated. Tunde's heart dropped. "Amara, I don't want to leave you, but I can't stay if you keep treating me like something you're afraid to lose instead of someone you love." He stepped closer. "I do love you." "I know," she whispered, "but love isn't supposed to feel like this." Tunde swallowed hard. "I talked to Adrian." She stiffened. "Why?" "Because I needed answers," he said, "and he gave them to me." She looked away. "What did he say?" "That he's grieving, that he sees something in you that reminds him of his fiancée, that he's sorry." Amara's eyes softened. "He is sorry." "And he said something else," Tunde added. "What?" "That I'm fighting the wrong person." Amara's breath caught. "Tunde." He stepped closer, voice trembling. "I'm scared. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of not being enough. I'm scared of everything." She reached for his hand. "Then tell me. Don't hide it. Don't bury it. Let me in." He broke. Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I don't know how." She pulled him into her arms. "Then we'll learn together." He held her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder. "I'm sorry." "I know. I'm sorry, too." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the silence finally soft instead of sharp. After a long moment, she pulled back. "There's something I want to show you." She turned to the canvas. Tunde froze. It was a painting of 3 hands, one letting go, one holding on, one reaching for neither. "What does it mean?" he whispered. "It means," she said softly, "we all have to choose." He swallowed. "And what do you choose?" She took his hand. "You, but only if you choose me without fear." He nodded, tears falling. "I do. I will." She smiled weakly. "Then we'll be okay." He kissed her forehead. "We will." She leaned into him. "Let's go home." He nodded. "Yeah, let's go." As they walked out of the studio, Tunde felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not jealousy, but something quieter. Hope. And somewhere across the city, Adrian Cole sat alone in his office, staring at the empty space where Amara once stood, finally letting go of the hand he'd been holding in his mind for years. He whispered to himself, "Thank you," and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he felt the grief loosen its grip, and he let her go.